I stood on my land as the sun came up. Everything felt quiet and familiar, but something had already changed. A notice arrived without warning. Simple words, strict rules, no backyard structures allowed. I read it twice, just to be sure. The message was clear and firm, but clarity creates opportunity. They saw an empty yard. I saw something different. Possibility often hides in plain sight. I walked the land carefully, every step measured and calm. The plan was already forming. The surface looked simple and untouched, but beneath it there was space, and space means options. I reviewed every detail carefully. Rules are clear when you read them right, and clarity leaves room to move. From above, the difference was obvious. Open land beside strict order, two worlds sharing one line. I stayed patient and quiet. No rush, no reaction. The best moves are never loud. The light spread slowly across the land. Everything felt steady and clear. The plan was ready to begin. I moved along the boundary quietly. Every step felt certain. The idea was taking shape. A simple design came together. Clean, efficient, and quiet. Everything stayed within the lines. The space remained unchanged on the surface. Nothing unusual to see, and that was exactly the point. I checked every detail again. Precision matters more than speed. Everything had to be perfect. From above, nothing seemed different. Just a normal yard beside neat homes. Sometimes, the biggest changes stay hidden. Everything was prepared carefully. Each tool placed with purpose. Preparation creates confidence. I stayed focused and calm. No need to rush anything. Timing matters more than speed. The light shifted as the day moved on. Everything stayed quiet and steady. The process had already begun. The paperwork stayed simple and clear. Every rule understood completely. Clarity is always power. As the sun set, everything felt aligned. The plan was in motion, and no one had noticed a thing. The next morning looked completely normal. Nothing had changed on the surface, and that was exactly the goal. I moved carefully across the space. Every step measured and quiet. Precision guided every action. The surface stayed simple and clean. Nothing unusual stood out. Everything blended naturally. From a distance, it looked like any other yard. Quiet, ordinary, untouched. Appearances can be deceiving. I reviewed everything once more. Every detail had to stay perfect. There was no room for mistakes. Everything was set in place. Prepared quietly and carefully. Execution comes after patience. I stayed focused on the plan. No distractions, no noise. Just calm, steady progress. The yard looked exactly the same. Nothing raised attention, and that meant everything was working. Small details mattered the most. Every surface stayed clean and natural. Perfection lives in the details. The light shifted into gold again. Everything felt calm and aligned. The plan continued, without interruption. From above, nothing had changed. The same quiet yard beside neat homes. The difference remained hidden. I walked to the edge of the land again. Everything stayed exactly as planned. Consistency was key. The paperwork stayed simple. Every rule followed exactly. Nothing was out of line. I observed quietly, saying nothing. Patience made everything easier. Silence kept things smooth. The land stayed calm and alive. Cattle moved slowly through the grass. Everything felt natural and steady. I looked ahead with quiet confidence. Everything was unfolding perfectly. Patience had done its job. From every angle, it looked the same. Nothing out of place. And that was the entire point. My hands rested steady and calm. No rush, no pressure. Everything was under control. The sun dipped low across the land. Everything remained peaceful and quiet. The plan was complete. I stood there calm and certain. Everything had gone exactly as planned, and no one expected what came next. The next morning looked just like any other. Nothing seemed different at all. Everything remained perfectly normal. I walked across the yard calmly, every step steady and confident. The plan had already worked. The surface stayed clean and unchanged. Nothing unusual to notice. Everything blended in perfectly. From a distance, it looked completely ordinary. Just another quiet backyard. No signs of anything different. I checked the documents one last time. Everything followed the rules exactly. There was nothing to question. From above, everything looked unchanged. Open land beside neat homes. No visible difference at all. I stood there quietly, knowing the outcome. No confrontation was needed. Everything spoke for itself. The land remained calm and steady. Life moved forward naturally. Nothing was disturbed. As the sun set, everything felt complete. The plan had worked without noise. Sometimes the quietest solutions win. I took one last look at the land. Everything was calm, simple, and in place. If you enjoyed this, like, subscribe, and tell me where you're watching from.